Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Torah L'chaim with your host, Rabbi Anibal. Thank you so much for tuning in this afternoon so we can spend about an hour studying Torah and taking care of our souls by connecting with God, connecting to our roots, and studying something meaningful that hopefully will have the power of transforming our lives. So thank you so much for being there week after week. It's great. It's great to have this opportunity to connect and to study Torah. So welcome Maria and Shelley that I know they were here even before I started the stream. You opened the computer and there they were. There they were saying hello. And so thank you for being there. Brendan David Grossman are here as well, and Amparo Goldman. Let's see who else shows up by the time that we start with the content of the class. It's going to be about 5 minutes from now. I just want to chat with all of you. If there is anything you want to let me know, did you guys celebrate Lag BaOmer in any way? So it was 2 days ago on Tuesday during all day, Monday night and Tuesday, that was Lag BaOmer, day 33 of the counting of the Omer. Hello, Karen Farkas. Welcome to the class. We're talking about Lag BaOmer. I want to know what people did or didn't do for Lag BaOmer. There were some celebrations here in Winnipeg. This year I didn't have any opportunity to go with my son to any of those. Busy schedule. I counted with a blessing on Monday night, but I didn't have an opportunity to go outside and celebrate. If you Google it, you will see that in Israel it's a big deal with thousands and thousands of people gathering no matter what at the tomb of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, and they dance and they sing. They have bonfires. And by the way, I was just reading that it was this Sephardic rabbi in Argentina who went crazy against people because he doesn't like people doing bonfires. He argues that it's not a Jewish practice. It has no Jewish roots. He swears that it's coming from a pagan tradition. I can't remember what he was saying. There is another celebration, pagan celebration around the same time. And on top of that, he was saying that it's dangerous. It's dangerous going around making bonfires unless that you know what you're doing and you're in a specific way, a place dedicated for that, like in certain places in Israel, for example. He was saying that it's a dangerous thing for people to start getting these traditions and go and lighting bonfires everywhere. Have you ever seen that? People lighting bonfires for Lag BaOmer? Let me know in the comments. Let me know in the chat. Because growing up in Argentina, it wasn't so common, but it looks like nowadays in South America, it became a big deal to do that. Especially because as we in North America, we are moving into the second half of the spring, and then the summer in South America started to get kind of cold. So sometimes bonfires at night maybe make sense to warm it up a little bit, right? To have some marshmallows or something. Although growing up, we didn't have marshmallows there with the bonfires. We used to do potatoes or wieners, but not marshmallows. That's something very North American. And by the way, I don't know. I keep kosher at home. And the problem with the regular marshmallows is that they contain gelatin. And gelatin is not kosher. So you have to be sure that you are eating kosher marshmallows. Which, I don't know, I've been told that they are pretty good compared to the other ones. But what do I know? They are not as fluffy. I can see that. The non-kosher marshmallows are huge and fluffy, and I don't know, kosher marshmallows, you can roast it as well. So that's not a problem anyway. So, how's everyone doing? Let me know your day. And if you didn't do anything for Lag BaOmer this year, hopefully you will be able to do it next year. It's a cool thing if whatever you are, if you can always join Lag BaOmer celebrations, usually picnics and stuff like that. Okay, so let's start with the class. I wanted to start studying a little bit about specific traditions and laws of Lag BaOmer. What do we do? Or what we should have done 2 days ago. But it's always good to study a little bit about Lag BaOmer to understand. Karen Farka, thank you for your comment. We are walking in the forest. Okay, very nice. Walking in the forest. But you know that's walking in the forest or going out to nature is also a tradition of Lag BaOmer to do that. Many people do that. Or they have day trips at schools. And I don't think my son's school did anything super special for Lag BaOmer. I know he's in grade 4 and he has some special homework, special project for Lag BaOmer. I don't remember the details, but not much more than that. Okay, so let's study Lag BaOmer. Everyone, Lag BaOmer. Let me remove the QR code. So let's review. Lag BaOmer is the 33rd day of the Omer count. This year was on May 9th, 2023. Okay? May 9th. It's a festive day on the Jewish calendar. That's something you have to remember. It's a festive day. It's not just another day of the calendar. There is something special about it, and we celebrate. Okay? It is celebrated with day trips on which children traditionally play with bows and arrows. Yeah, I forgot about that one. Bows and arrows. It's another tradition of Lag BaOmer that comes from the day, so we say, right? I mean, I cannot prove this. It's not a factual thing, but it became a tradition. It came from the days when we were under Roman occupation, like 2,000 years ago in the land of Israel. And rabbis were not allowed to gather studying Torah. So there was this pretend game that they were hunting and playing with bows and arrows, but actually they were studying Torah. I don't know. It sounds a little bit... I don't know. I mean, it could be, but the thing is, we Jews, we don't hunt. We don't hunt because if you hunt, the game meat is not kosher. So I don't know where this is coming from, but there is a tradition to celebrate with bows and arrows, and I was always told that it came all the way from those days, but I can't confirm or deny that. So what else? Bonfires that I was mentioned before, and again, in these days, is controversial with so many wildfires and things. If we all go around and play with fire, is dangerous, right? It's almost like the tradition of getting intoxicated in Purim, that we started to rethink all these traditions based on bad outcomes of that. Because there are cases on Purim that people got drunk and then they got involved in car accidents and people got killed or injured. And the same thing with the bonfires. Yeah, you can have fun, but you can start a disaster if you go around lighting fires everywhere you go. So again, I have to mention it is traditional, but I think it should be reviewed. We also have people having parades and other joyous events, dancing, singing. That's good. Many visit the grave of the great sage and mystic Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, located in Meron, northern Israel, the anniversary of whose passing is on this day, Lag BaOmer. Okay? Karen Farkas, you say you can study anywhere. Yeah, but it looks like back in the day, it was well known where Jews were getting together to study Torah, so the Romans were vigilant of those places, right? So they started to get together in the forest to study, and that's why we have all these pretend games, so nobody will know that they were actually studying Torah. But again, I cannot prove you that. I cannot present that as a fact. Okay, so this is the first thing you have to remember. We do all this. Okay, and also remember is the anniversary of the Yortzeit. Is the Yortzeit of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. This is very important. More about Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai in a few minutes. Okay, I want to talk more about him. Now, the other thing you have to remember, Lag BaOmer is always on the 18th day of the month of Iyar. Okay, that's the month that we are right now, the month of Iyar. Then the word lag, from Lag BaOmer, the word lag is made of the Hebrew letters Lamed and Gimel. Two letters, Lamed and Gimel. Combine them and you have lag, which together have the numerical value of 33. That's why, because it's the 33rd day, the letters representing 33 are Lamed and Gimel, and you can actually make them sound like lag. So it's easy to pronounce, easy to remember. So BaOmer means of the Omer. So the Omer, remember, is the counting period that begins on the second day of Passover and culminates with the holiday of Shavuot following day 49. Hence, Lag BaOmer is the 33rd day of the Omer count, which coincides with the 18th of Iyar. Is that clear? I hope you can remember this in the future. So always, Lag BaOmer, 18th of Iyar. Kind of easy to remember because 18th is high, right? It's a very famous number in Judaism, and the month of Iyar sounds like the year. 12 months makes a year, so 18th of Iyar is Lag BaOmer. Okay, so so far, what I haven't explained, what I haven't taught, is why we celebrate on Lag BaOmer. I explained what we did. I explained even where we do it, like some people go to Meron, etc. But why do we celebrate on that day and not other days around it in the Jewish calendar? So this is the thing. What are we celebrating? Well, listen to this, because this is very interesting. Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, the one who passed away in Lag BaOmer, remember? Who lived in the 2nd century of the Common Era, was the first to publicly teach the mystical dimension of the Torah, known as the Kabbalah, and is the author of the classic text of Kabbalah, the Zohar. On the day of his passing, Rabbi Shimon instructed his disciples to mark the date as the day of my joy. Okay? I want you to try to understand this, because this is something that we usually don't understand it this way whenever we are talking about death in Judaism. Okay? Basically, this rabbi, who was a Kabbalist, a mystic, he instructed his students that after his passing, don't cry for him. Instead of crying, it should be a joyous day. But again, it doesn't seem to be a Jewish concept. It's something that we see or we experience in these days in other religions, where people don't have funerals. They have celebrations of life. Have you ever attended one of those? Celebration of life? They don't call it funeral. They call it celebration of life. The instructions that Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai left before his death were similar to that concept, the concept of celebration of life that we experience around in these days. In Judaism, when somebody dies, we have the Shiva, right, which is a very intense, and people come to comfort the mourners and so forth. This guy said, no, I want you to celebrate me. Okay? So why is that? Well, I will continue with the text here. So the final day of a righteous person, or like a tzaddik, a righteous person's earthly life, marks the point at which all their deeds, teachings, and work achieve their culminating perfection and the zenith of their impact upon our lives. So each Lag BaOmer, we celebrate Rabbi Shimon's life and the revelation of the esoteric soul of Torah. In other words, what he's saying is when somebody dies, when somebody passes away, at that point, you can fully appreciate everything they did. And of course, and this is the thing, it's a reality. The why, or the reason why we cry, why we are sad, is because we won't have that person interacting with us anymore. We got so much from them, we get joy from them, we get wisdom from them, and we're selfish. We want them forever on our side, or by our side. We want them forever by our side. So whenever they are not with us anymore, we cry, we suffer. But basically, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai was saying is, why will you cry? I will be always there with you. I wrote the Zohar for you to inspire you, and so forth. He was saying, I have nothing else to give on this earth. My mission on this earth was completed. So I'm leaving this world because my work here is done. But I leave all this behind, enjoy it, rejoice, and remember me with song and dance. And that's exactly what is happening every year during his Yortzeit. People go to Meron and they sing and they dance and they rejoice in the teachings of the Zohar and other teachings by Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. There are many teachings from him, and you can read, you can easily Google them, and you will see many of the wonderful teachings. Have you ever studied the Zohar? Let me know in the comments. Let me know in the chat. I want to know. I want to know if you ever have any experience with the Zohar. It's something that is difficult to read, difficult to learn if you are on your own. You need a teacher next to you to study Zohar, because many of the things are like lots of images there. You need to use your imagination a lot to grasp all this esoteric concept that Rabbi Shimon is trying to teach. This is the case of somebody who was really illuminated, right? He understood so many wonderful things about God and about the relationship between God and humanity, the way God created the world. But it's something that is very difficult to explain with words. I will say that whenever we understand the way God interacts with the world and with us, is that understanding belongs to the realm of feeling. It's almost like a gut feeling, but how do you explain a gut feeling? There are certain things that they are very difficult to explain with words. Let me give you an example. How do you explain, for example, with words, the difference between the taste of chocolate and the taste of strawberry? You can feel it. You close your eyes and you can easily tell the difference between one and the other. But how do you explain to another person, right? And the same thing with somebody understands things belonging to the spiritual realm, where there is no shape, no time. Okay? It's a different world. How do you explain that? Or number one, how do you understand that? We belong to a different world. It's like somebody said, how can you explain, for example, to a blind person the difference between red and green? If you know, the person won't be able to see it. But you can see it. But then you still have to be able to explain to that other person who cannot the difference between one and the other. I'm not saying that it's impossible. I'm saying I wouldn't know what to do. And Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, he understood all these spiritual things, very complex spiritual things, and he tried to put it on a book. And then that's why when you open, he will talk about colors and things that, unless that you have somebody guiding you, being sure that you understand what Rabbi Shimon tried to teach, it would be very difficult to truly understand the essence of the Zohar. Let's see here the chat. Shelly Chochinov, you did study the Zohar decades ago. Clyde, welcome Clyde. You said our cousin's son is named Zohar. Yeah, it's also a name. Yeah. Zohar means splendor. So the Zohar is the book of splendor. And again, lots of in that book there are lots of references in one way or another to light. Yeah, Shelly, I was probably too young then. Now would be the time. Okay, it's never too late. Never too late. There was a Kabbalah Melton class? Oh, wow. I didn't know that. I don't remember a Kabbalah curricula in Melton. I should double check. Donna Alden Bogdan, welcome to the class. Welcome. Great to have you. Okay? And again, if you just came to the class, don't feel that you missed anything. Okay? You can always replay the class after I finish, or this entire class is going to be rebroadcasted tonight at 8 p.m. Central Time. Okay? So you can recatch it tonight if you want. We are talking about Lag BaOmer, and specifically now about the life of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai and why he requested from his student that they should not cry the day of his passing. It should be a day of celebration. That's one of the things that we do for Lag BaOmer. Okay? Now, Lag BaOmer also commemorates another joyous event. The Talmud relates that in the weeks between the Jewish holiday of Passover and Shavuot, okay, during the counting of the Omer, a plague raged among the students of the great sage Rabbi Akiva. Surprise, surprise, the teacher of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, because they did not act respectfully toward each other. These weeks are therefore observed as a period of mourning. So, let me explain. Because of what happened with the students of Rabbi Akiva, and because many of them died, and it was a big blow to Jewish, preservation of Torah in the generation. Forget about remember the fact that Romans were killing rabbis, and now all of a sudden a plague started to kill all these thousands of students from Rabbi Akiva. Even though the rabbis tried to understand that plague was a punishment from God, because they knew their Torah beautifully, upside down. They knew all the interpretations, all the exegesis, but they were nasty to each other. So in other words, remember we said that, like already, we've been studying for 2 or 3 weeks in a row, that during the counting of the Omer, one of the things we do is we try to become better people in preparation for the revelation of the Torah. And this is another proof that the Torah without a good heart, without being nice to each other, is useless. That is kind of the teaching that the rabbis try to give us when they said, yeah, these students died because all the Torah that they knew was useless because they didn't treat each other with respect. Okay, but nevertheless, because they died and all the suffering, the rabbis decided that the period between Pesach and Shavuot was going to be a period of semi-mourning. Okay? Semi-mourning, where we'll go back to the text, various joyous activities prescribed by law and custom. So, for example, people don't get married, some people don't play music, they don't go to live events, so forth. Okay? But it says that plague started on Pesach. But on Lag BaOmer, the 33rd day of the counting of the Omer, the deaths ceased. Thus, Lag BaOmer also carries the theme of loving and respecting one's fellow. So, one of the interpretations is that the plague ceased because they finally got the message. They finally changed their behavior. They embraced each other. They loved each other. So the Lag BaOmer is a day of celebration, but it's also a day where we should celebrate with the love your neighbor as yourself principle, value in mind. That's what I said, but going back to what I said at the beginning, even though many people celebrate lighting bonfires, if you feel that there is something dangerous, doesn't matter if there is a tradition, you should never do it. Okay? Because one of the things that Lag BaOmer remembers is being aware that there is a world beyond ourselves. It's not that, it's not that we should go around thinking that everything should be for me. There is a world beyond ourselves. That's also a message of Lag BaOmer. Any questions or any comments for this? Okay? So now that we study about BaOmer a little bit, hopefully you learn a little bit about BaOmer, we're going to move into this week's Parsha, which is Behar and Bechukotai. So I want to go to the beginning of the Parsha, and it starts like this. Vaydaber Adonai el Moshe Behar Sinai Lemor. Okay? So you can hear the word Behar Sinai. That's why the Parsha is called Behar, which means on the mountain, on Mount Sinai. Okay, Ar Sinai, Mount Sinai. So the Lord spoke to Moses on Mount Sinai. And we all know what happened on Mount Sinai, revelation of the Torah. Okay, Torah was revealed to Moses, and the revelation on Sinai was to Moses and to everybody. Like that was something experienced by the whole people of Israel. So the Lord spoke to Moses on Sinai, saying, speak to the Israelite people and say to them, when you enter the land that I assign to you, the land shall observe a Sabbath of the Lord. Who can tell me what the Torah is talking about here? Do you know which commandment are we mentioning here? Because remember, I always say there are different kind of commandments that we observe in these days. You have the Torah commandments and rabbinic commandments. Torah commandments are called mitzvot deoraita. Deoraita is an Aramaic word which means from the Torah. Deoraita. Okay? And some other commandments are commandments derabanan. Mitzvot derabanan, which means from the rabbis. Here we have a clear mitzvah deoraita. A mitzvah, commandment from the Torah. But I want you to tell me, use the chat please, if you can see, you can tell me, which specific commandment are we reading here? Okay, Karen Farkas, letting the fields lie. You're close there. How is it called? It has a specific name. You have a specific name. Let's see if you guys know it. I'll give you a second to think about that. I don't know if you know which commandment we are talking about here. Nope. Okay. The fields need to be once every 7 years. Shelly, yeah, you're there. But how is it called? It's called Shemitah. This commandment is called Shemitah and is translated as sabbatical year. Okay? Shemitah. Very good, Brenda. Brenda goes Shemitah. It says there, Shabbat. Ha'aret Shabbat ladonai. Observe Sabbath to the Lord, but it's called Shemitah. Very good. Now, it's interesting because, and I will tell you this, it's like a side note, right? There was a discussion among the rabbis if the Shemitah should be observed right away when they enter to the land, or it should be observed after they work the land for 6 years. Right? It's not clear, because when you enter the land shall observe a Shabbat. So it looks like you're talking about that they have to do it right away, but now, long story short, it was decided, no, you work, basically the commandment of Shemitah was given, and then they have to work for 6 years, and the 7th is going to be a Shemitah, a Sabbath of the land. Okay? Yes. Anyway, Donna, new word for me. Okay, yeah, we have 2 words that comes that we are going to learn in this parsha. One is called Shemitah, the sabbatical, and the other one is Yovel, which is translated as Jubilee. That is once every 50 years. And all these things, at the end of the day, it wasn't just about the land resting, but it was also about freeing slaves and forgiving debt and returning the land to the proper owners. And it was very complex. I don't want to go into the details because that would be a totally different class. But yeah, this parsha we learn the concept of Shemitah and Yovel, Jubilee. Okay? So, but Rashi Rashi has a very good question about this couple of verses. Leviticus 25 verses 1 and 2. Listen to this, because it says, the Torah is talking about revelation, and then it says, when you go to the land, observe the Shemitah. Very good. But Rashi asks, whoa, what has the sabbatical year to do with Mount Sinai? Right? Were not all commandments given on Sinai? The verse wishes to tell us, just as with the sabbatical year, both its general principle and its minute details were ordained on Mount Sinai, so too was it with all the commandments. Their general principle as well as their details were ordained on Mount Sinai. It's interesting because if you read, let me go again here. If you see here, where it said the Lord spoke of Moses on Mount Sinai, it looks like that is the thing that God said to Moses on Sinai. And we know that it was much more. But then if you continue reading in the Torah, you will see that it goes into not just the general principle of the law of the Shemitah, but also all the details. Many other laws that are presented in the Parsha or in other parts of the Revelation, we get to read the general principle, but we never find any details there. So what Rashi is saying is that God decided to present this specific commandment, the commandment of sabbatical, as representative of revelation on Sinai, because in this case we do read from the Parsha the general principle and all the details. And in the same way that all the details were presented at that time, all the details from all other commandments were presented at that time. And you will say, why? But that's the case. Where are they? Oral law. Oral law. So in other words, what Rashi is saying here is the opening verses of this week's Parsha is the justification of the belief in the oral law. That all the details were presented indeed, even if they are not explicitly written in the Torah. Where do we learn all the details if they are not written in the Torah? Well, in these days, you learn them from the Talmud. Right? Back in the day when the Talmud was not written, the oral law were in the hands of the rabbi. So if you want to know the details, a rabbi will have to teach you based on what their teachers taught them. Okay? So going back to the beginning of the class when we were talking about Lag BaOmer, the thing is because at the time that Lag BaOmer was instituted, when the Romans were targeting rabbis and studying Torah was forbidden, and many of the students of Rabbi Akiva were dying and so forth, the rabbis already made the decision to get together, to gather all the information of the oral law and to write it down. Eventually that became the Talmud. Okay? There was never the intent to get the oral law written. The oral law is supposed to remain oral, but that was impossible. Well, I guess it was possible, but the rabbis got afraid that all that valuable information will get lost. So even though the commandments was kind of to keep it oral, the oral law should stay oral, they had to do it, they have to change that commandment out of need. It has to be written down. That's why we have the Talmud. Okay? Now, this is what Rashi says, right? All the principles and the details were given on Sinai. But, listen to this. Rabbi Ishmael says, no, Mr. Rashi. I disagree with you. He said, the general principles of the Torah were given at Sinai. But all the details when God spoke to Moses in the tent of meeting. Remember the tent of meeting? I don't know if we... I talked about that in one class in the past when we were talking about how oral law was developed, that God called Moses to this special tent that it was part of the tabernacle, called the tent of the meeting. And it was it was like almost like in these days would be a special phone booth where, I don't know, there's a direct line to the president or something like that. But the communications came always from God to Moses. So God will say to Moses, come into the tent of the meeting, and there will be a special communication, a dialogue between God and Moses will learn stuff there. Okay? So Rabbi Ishmael said the idea of the tent of the meeting is that the general principle of the Torah, yes, like Rashi said, all the general principles of the Torah were given on Sinai. But the details were not given on Sinai. The details were given to Moses during these meetings in the tent of meeting. Okay? But Rabbi Akiva, also connection there with Lag BaOmer, right? Rabbi Akiva's students were the one who died during Pesach and Shavuot. Rabbi Akiva says, no. The general principle and the details were given at Sinai, just the way Rashi is reinforcing. But they were then repeated in the tent of meeting and enjoined a third time in the plains of Moab, and that is before Moses' death. And then you will read that in the book of Deuteronomy. Okay? So in other words, we said, all the details were given to Moses during the revelation on Sinai, but then they were repeated because they were too important. They were repeated. Maybe Moses, the second time that they were repeated, Moses understood other things. And that kind of makes sense because if you read the book of Deuteronomy, you will see that some of the commandments, even though the commandments specifically are the same, the reason of why we do the commandments sometimes is different. And you will see, for example, that even the description of Shabbat, where the Torah will say that the Shabbat is there to remind us of the creation of the world, and on the other side it will say that the Torah is the Shabbat is there as a reminder of the Exodus of Egypt. So there is an evolution on the understanding of the commandments. That is not just one reason, sometimes there are multiple layers. And that came, according to the Talmud, with its multiple encounters of Moses and God that would eventually allow Moses to have a deeper understanding of the Torah. Okay? We are lucky that we got all that written down eventually in the Talmud so we can study all these layers of interpretations. Okay? Which is a beautiful thing. Back to here, right, is what I mentioned before. Let's study a little bit about the verse. Yes, so when you enter the land that I assigned to you, the land shall observe a Sabbath for God, right? The Shemitah. So here when is the rabbi said, let me move this a little bit. Let's do high. Like it there. Taken on its own, this verse seems to imply that a Sabbath unto God is to be observed immediately upon entering the land. Remember I mentioned that? But in practice, when the Jewish people entered the land of Israel, they first worked the land for 6 years, and only then observed the 7th year as the Shemitah, sabbatical year, as indeed the Torah clearly instructs in the following verses. Okay, the Torah is telling us that a Shemitah is to both precede and follow our 6 years of labor, to follow it on the calendar, but to also precede it, if not in actuality, then conceptually, right? So let's continue with this, and why this is so important. Because you say, okay, what's the application of this? Let's continue. Therein lies an important lesson in how we are to approach the mundane involvements in life. So here the Rebbe, the Lubavitcher Rebbe, is going to try to get a principle, a teaching, out of the fact that they have to have the Shemitah in mind before they start working 6 years. Okay? What is that? Why is that so important? Listen to this. This is the lesson. True, we begin with the material, for in a world governed by cause and effect, the means inevitably precede the end. What is first in actuality need not be first in mind. In mind and consciousness, the end must precede the means. For without a clear vision of their purpose to guide them, the means may begin to see themselves at the end. The spiritual harvest of a Shabbat or Shemitah can be achieved only after a work week of dealing with the material world and developing its resources. But it must be preceded and predicated upon a Sabbath unto God that occupies the fore of our consciousness and pervades our every deed. This is so important. This is so important because what the Rebbe is trying to explain is that we all love Shabbat. It's the day of rest. Well, the day of rest itself doesn't make any sense if you don't work first. But you work first with Shabbat in mind, knowing that, you can put all the energy during these 6 days into doing something and creating and working hard. But then eventually the Shabbat will come where we can take a pause, we can hit the reset button, and we can reconnect to God. If you don't start, if you go to work without knowing that eventually the 7th day is going to be a day of rest, it's the wrong way of doing it. It's like let's say when you start a new job, you want to know when your holidays are going to be. It doesn't mean that you want to take them right away. They say, well, you're not working yet. What do you want to know about the holiday? Well, because eventually I will need to replenish my energy. So I want to know if this kind of work involves some kind of pause in the future, right? Where I can rest. It doesn't mean that you want to rest right away or you don't want to work. It means that you have it in mind. So Shabbat should be in our mind before we start the week. And this kind of mimics what happens with the world. I don't know what yours, and I want to hear from you. What's your way to disconnect? What is your way to observe Shabbat? Because I believe that there are many ways. Shabbat has many layers. So I would like to know what is your own way to connect with Shabbat and disconnect from the work, and how you enjoy the Shabbat to replenish your energy. But again, I was always thinking that replenishing the energies doesn't make any sense if you don't work for the other 6 days, right? I think it's Shabbat and the 6 days are both necessary, and they are both sides of the same coin. It's very important. So yeah, if you want to share with us what is your way, what is your way to observe Shabbat and to enjoy the Shabbat, I would be curious. Shelly Chochinov, go for a long walk. Okay, interesting. That is not my way, by the way, to disconnect on Shabbat. But if it works for you, that's fantastic. Donna, go to synagogue on Shabbat. It's enjoyable. Okay, you see, there are different ways. Different ways. Some people like Shelly, they go to synagogues and long walks. Both. I like to read the newspaper on Shabbat, for example. I never have time to do it mostly. Mostly I don't have time to do it during the week anymore. Before, when we were in lockdown, I had a little bit more time to read it. Now it's more difficult. I read a little bit in the morning when I have my coffee, but I can't pass section A, page 2. I never have more time. I never have time for more than that. But then on Shabbat, I usually like to do that. I like to play sport with my son on Shabbat and doing that. Yeah, singing. It's great. It's great. Services are very important on Shabbat. Some people like the kiddush that we have after services on Shabbat. It's their way to reconnect with community, right? And yeah. A short sleep, Shelley. Yes, I wish I could go back to that, but I cannot do my short sleep anymore. My son doesn't believe on naps. He doesn't believe in naps. He never did, not even as a baby. Okay, so let's continue. I want to present to you another teaching, beautiful teaching from this parsha, okay? Beautiful teaching. Brenda Grossman, I can only dream of party sandwiches. Yeah, well, you have to come visit us again, and you will have lots of party sandwiches. Lots of sandwiches. So, and it's interesting that we talk about the spiritual dimension of the Shabbat and everything, but I want to bring you down to earth. And I want to show you how the Torah goes back and forth between spiritual matters and also matters that regulates society. And this is a perfect example. Listen to this. I love this teaching. I love this teaching. It says, Leviticus chapter 25, again, verses 14 and 17. When you sell property to your neighbor or buy any from your neighbor, you shall not wrong one another. Okay? I don't think I have to explain that one. It's very clear. And then he said, do not wrong one another, but fear your God, for I, the Lord, am your God. Okay? So there is something interesting that you will always see at the end of all these commandments, that it will always add the fear your God. Why is that necessary? Well, because we are prone to find loopholes on the law, right? And then basically said, fear your God. That means even if nobody is watching, even if you can fool the judge because you find a loophole, fear your God. Because you know that there is the letter of the law and the spirit of the law, right? That's the thing. There is the letter of the law and the spirit of the law. You can observe the letter of the law without observing the spirit of the law. We all know that. We all know that. But the rabbi understands now that the repetition of the you shall not wrong one another on verses 14 and 17, you can see there is a repetition there, which Rashi will say is not necessary. But the rabbis will say it's necessary because they are talking about two different kinds of wronging one another. Two different kinds. So let me explain this. What two different kinds are there? Well, Rashi will explain. The first verse refers to financial fraud with money. The second verse forbids verbal fraud, speaking hurtful words or giving bad advice. That is why the second verse adds, but you shall fear your God, lest the person say, who will know that my intention was to do him evil? Yeah, because when you are doing some kind of financial transaction and you wrong, you cheat, it's easy, or it's easier that you will be caught. There are paper trails, there are proofs, sometimes witnesses, so it's more difficult to fully get away with it. But when you say something, yeah, sure, you got proof that I said it to you, right? So that's why. But again, two different kind of prohibition that we learn from here. Number one, financial cheating. Number two, verbal cheating is also forbidden. Okay? And the Rambam will explain more about this second kind of cheating, which is the verbal, which is the one that is more difficult to regulate because it's more difficult to catch. Okay? So the Rambam will say, and similarly, lies, tricks, subterfuges, cheatings, circumventions are forbidden. Okay? They said it is forbidden to deceive anyone, and even more so when it can lead to the desecration of God's name. For that is a great sin and imbues in a person bad traits. And all these wicked actions, God explained that he will be disgusted with them and with those who perform them, as it says, for anyone who does this is an abomination of God. Because again, this verbal fraud is more difficult to catch. So that is the thing that only a person of faith will stop themselves from doing it, knowing that the judge is God. At the end of the day, you have to answer to the creator of the world, because nobody will be able to come back to you with any kind of formal accusation about this kind of different cheats. Maybe you're very good at it, even with financial fraud. Maybe you're very good at it. You know that you will never be caught. But we believe that there is another judge, that is God, that is always watching. And it's a different dimension, it's a different way of doing it. But now, the interesting thing is that the rabbis will also explain that the problem with verbal fraud is, and that's why we don't understand or we don't take it so seriously, is that they teach that verbal fraud or cheating is a form of stealing. Have you ever cheated at school? You don't have to say it in the chat. I don't want you to put anything there. Just think about it and just be honest with yourself. Have you ever cheated at school? Right? You were doing an exam, you didn't know the answers, you look around, and then now you know the answers. You're there, or you have a little cheat paper or cheat sheet in your hand. You didn't really study, but you're good at cheating, so eventually you get good notes. You passed. You passed the test. Not because you knew it, but because you cheated. Well, the rabbis said that's one of the prohibition of that. You just violated that commandment that is talking about all kind of cheatings and frauds. Not necessarily financial, but the other frauds. And that is also a form of stealing. How so? Well, think of it this way. That kind of cheating that we do at school or university is called geneivat da'at. That is the halachic name for those kind of cheatings. Geneivat da'at. You know what a geneivat is? Do you know what a ganev or ganav? What is a ganav? Come on, chat. Who is a ganav in Hebrew? A ganev. I will be surprised if nobody typed anything there. Who is a ganev? I'll give you a second when I have water here. A thief. Thank you, Shelley. A thief is a ganev. Okay? Da'at is mind. So, geneivat da'at means the thief of the mind. A cheater. The one who will trick you into thinking that something is different from reality. Right? So, let me explain. Rabbi Menashe Klein said, cheating is a clear violation of geneivat da'at. Okay, the cheating that we do at school, and this is something perhaps you can talk to your kids, to your grandkids, right? Because they don't understand what's wrong with cheating at school. Okay, and the rabbi said no, cheating is bad because it's a way of stealing, and the rabbi will say cheating is a clear violation of geneivat da'at, both against the professor, you are tricking the professor, but against future employers, for example, who take grades to be a measurement of competence. You realize that you passed that exam without studying, and that at the end of the year, you may have better grades than somebody who actually studied. You just stole their spot, maybe for a prize, recognition, or who knows, maybe for a job application. But somebody will look at your marks and say, oh, this one is better than the others, let's hire him. But then you went there through cheating, so you are stealing. You're stealing the opportunity from somewhere else. Think about the people, for example, that cheat on sports. You know that the sports, many of them, are a multi-billion-dollar business, right? And the one who is on top, the number one of the world of any sport, is the one who is going to get all the sponsorships, and it's going to get extra money and bonuses and many other things. So if you reach number one by cheating, you are stealing that from number two, who went there honestly. So we never know the extent of how much you're actually stealing when you cheat. So it's interesting to think about cheating in that way, in that term, as a way of stealing. Okay? Karen Farkas, in the long run, you're only cheating yourself. Yes, that's correct. And the rabbis will say that that's also another thing, that we should not cheat with our money, we should not cheat with our words, but also we should not cheat to ourselves. Yeah, that is the extra layer of the prohibition of cheating. We're also forbidden to cheat ourselves. So, yeah, let's wrap up this. I want just to teach you a little bit more about Genevat Dat. The literal meaning of Genevat Dat in Hebrew is theft of one mind, thoughts, wisdom, or knowledge. Also involve, for example, intellectual property or stuff like that, okay? But it said fooling someone and thereby causing him or her to have a mistaken assumption, belief, and or impression. Thus, the term is used in Jewish law to indicate deception, cheating, creation of false impression, and acquiring undeserved goodwill. Genevat Dat goes beyond lying. Any words of action that cause others to form incorrect conclusions about one's motives might be a violation of this prohibition. One does not have the right diminish the ability of another person to make a fair and honest evaluation, whether in business or interpersonal relations. Okay, and just to conclude the class, Karen, what you are saying that not cheating yourself, I found this here. Look, Rabbi Bunim of Pshisha, he said, legally, it is only forbidden to defraud one's fellow, but a Hasid must go beyond the letter of the law and take care not to fool himself either. Just like you are saying, Rabbi Karen Farkas. Absolutely. Okay, so thank you everyone for tuning in this afternoon. Thank you for being there so we can study together this week's Parsha. Hopefully you will be able to attend Shabbat service, to disconnect, and to sing, and to study. If you're like Shelly, you can go this Shabbat for a long walk. You can rest, you can sleep a little bit, you can read a book, or like me, you can read the newspaper. But hopefully I will see you again very soon, hopefully on Shabbat. So until that day, please be safe. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Give us the thumbs up, share this video. And if you haven't subscribed, subscribe to our channels. And remember, this class is going to be rebroadcasted tonight at 8 p.m. Central Time. Okay? So have a wonderful rest of your day. Stay safe, and bye now.